So what is Hub? Hub, to put it very simply, is an IP management and reuse platform, which immediately begs the question of what is an IP. So an IP is an open concept for Hub. It can be as simple as a singular file or as complex as an entire library or entire project. It doesn't matter. It can be whatever you want. Hub is able to manage every IP regardless of their shape and form. So as an IP management and reuse platform, Hub provides you features towards IP management, IP traceability, and project collaboration. Regarding IP management, Hub focuses on giving you a unified catalog, regardless of how heterogeneous your IPs might be. You will have a unified catalog to browse through those IPs. It puts a lot of emphasis on the IP collateral, so all the data, information, documentation, and knowledge around the IPs. Hub also keeps track of that. And Hub, of course, also contemplates aspects such as the versioning and storage of IPs. Regarding the IP management, specifically the IP catalog, this is a screenshot of how the catalog looks like. I will not go into a lot of detail because we'll have another webinar in which to unpack all the functionality that you have in the IP catalog, but it essentially gives you a very nice interface for you to look for your IPs based on several criteria and actually find the IP that addresses the specific needs that you have. With respect to collateral, it comes into many, it breaks down into different aspects. So first and foremost, Hub is keeping track of a set of attributes associated with each of the IPs. In fact, these attributes are completely user customizable. In this screen, I give you a few examples, but you can define your own attributes to associate with IPs, whatever is meaningful to you. And typically, the first thing that you actually do when you start using Hub is to actually define this set of attributes to characterize the IPs within your environment. So these attributes can be of several data types. They can be mandatory or optional. They can be defined as attribute classes, which means that different IPs with different attribute classes will be characterized with different sets of attributes. And these attributes can then later on be used as criteria for you to search and filter your IPs. And they also drive the IP comparison mechanism. So more information about these attributes you can check on the article that I refer to at the bottom of the slide. Besides that, Hub also keeps track of any documents that you have associated with the IPs. In fact, documents in Hub are also first-class citizens, which means that Hub also allows you to do versioning on the documents and nicely keep track and manage the documents that you have associated with your IPs. And finally, Hub collects in a discussion forum all the points about a particular object within Hub. So these can be questions, articles, alerts. It also captures email notification. And the idea is to distill within one single location, a centralized hub for all the knowledge around, in this case, a particular IP. With respect to IP management, and specifically the storage and versioning of your IPs, Hub doesn't really care where and how your IPs are stored. You can be storing your IPs in a data management solution, for example, SOS, or you can have your IPs in a file system, and you can even upload your IPs directly into Hub. So Hub is agnostic to where the actual data is being stored. So it interfaces with all these different options out there, which means that if you're using a third-party option, for example, if you're using a data management solution such as SOS, Hub will actually only keep track of the metadata while the data is being stored in whatever platform you're using, but you also have the option to upload into Hub both the data, and Hub also takes care of both the data and the metadata regarding a particular IP. But no matter which option you choose, and you can mix and match for different IPs, Hub will provide you with a consolidated experience for you to manage all your different IPs and version them in the platform. And it will also give you a unified IP catalog for all these different IPs, regardless of their shape and form and regardless of where they are stored. With respect to IP traceability, Hub keeps track of the relationship that you have between your different IPs. So if you have, for example, one IP that includes other IPs as its components, Hub will keep track of this relationship between these different IPs, which then allows you to tap into very interesting features in order to look at your IP data. One of which is what we call the bill of materials of an IP, which is simply a breakdown of all the components of a particular IP, regardless of the levels of hierarchy that you have in your design. We also have the opposite concept of that, which is to generate a consumer's report for a particular IP, which shows you how or where this IP is being utilized. So this is particularly useful, for example, if you are about to introduce a new revision of an IP and you want to know who is going to be affected. So this will show you where your IP is being used. Hub, still in the note of traceability, also interfaces with bug tracking platforms, which means that from within the Hub cockpit, you can have a listing of all the issues that are being tracked in these external platforms regarding a particular IP. And Hub does this in a hierarchical way, which means that if you are looking at a particular IP, you are able to see both the issues that are associated with that IP, as well as the issues that are associated with all its sub-components. And with respect to project collaboration tool, Hub offers you a lot of functionality with respect to giving you access to the data via dashboards and reports that you have within Hub. It has very rich access control features that allow you to very precisely gate who can do what within Hub. It keeps track of all the activity that is happening on Hub, and it gives you access to discussion forums that are associated with all the different objects that you have in Hub, so that you can centralize all the information around those objects in one single location. So now, how do you talk or how do you interact with Hub? There are many different ways. So the classical way to interact with Hub is via its GUI, which is essentially running on a web browser. So you just need a browser to interact with Hub. You can also interact with Hub via its command line client, which is called Hub CMD, or via the REST API, which is actually what's responsible for providing you with a virtuoso integration, which I'll go into more details in a couple of minutes. But regardless, or taking a side step before moving on to more details about the interaction with Hub, I want to note that Hub keeps track of 5 main components: the user, the group, the IP, the project, and the document. So what it means is that for each of the instances of each of these 5 types of objects, Hub will have a dedicated page for them. So every IP will have a dedicated page in Hub. Every group, every document, every project will have its own dedicated page inside the Hub interface. And all these pages have a very similar structure. So in this slide, we are looking at the structure of the page for a particular IP. In this case, it's an IP called Aviator. You can see it at the top. And if I break down this page into its constituents, these elements are going to be common throughout all the different pages and interfaces that you have in Hub. And the idea is that you have a familiar experience when browsing through the tool. So just very simply, and to break it down, if we start by the left-hand side at the top, you have the name of the object that you're looking at. Then below the name, you will have the characteristics of the object, which in the particular case of an IP are the IP attributes. And then at the bottom, you have the components of the object that you're looking for. In the case of an IP, are sub-IPs, documents, users, scripts, and plugins. But for example, if you're looking at a group, the components are of course going to be the group members. Then on the right-hand side at the top, you have action buttons that provide you quick access to contextual operations that apply to the specific object that you're looking at. And then you have tasks, milestones, and deliverables that show you a listing of all the action points that you have assigned to you regarding this particular object. And then at the bottom, you have a forum and activities section that centralizes all the discussion around this particular IP. This is, for example, a place where you can come in here and ask a question directly to the people that are working on this particular IP. You also have the command line client, as we noted before. I'm not going to go in depth on the command line because we will probably break it down in a future webinar, but just very briefly, the commands are structured in the way that the first keyword is a command, the second keyword is a subcommand, and then you have the options or additional arguments provided to that command. If you want more information about how to use Hub CMD, you can refer to its built-in documentation, which gives you very thorough guidance on how you can use all the different commands that you have available to you. Then, of course, you have the REST API, which allows you to request directly into Hub, and then Hub replies back with information in a familiar format such as JSON. You can also interact with Hub via SOS. So this SOS integration is powered by the Hub CMD command line client, and it allows you from SOS to go directly into Hub, to browse IPs from SOS, to publish IPs and get IPs directly without ever having to step out of SOS into Hub. This integration is materialized by a set of buttons that is added to the SOS GUI, and it is very similar to the integration that we have with Cadence Virtuoso. So the integration with Virtuoso is powered by the REST API, and again, it allows you to go to Hub, browse IPs, and publish or get IPs directly within the Virtuoso cockpit. This integration is made available via Cliosoft HUB menu that is available in the Library Manager. And regarding the installation of these two integrations that I just mentioned, you can go to our support website, you go to download Hub releases, you accept the terms and conditions, and the integration is available via an SOS UI plugin hyperlink in the downloads page. You just download that, extract it, and follow the README file for a detailed breakdown of where you need to put which files in order to leverage on these integrations.